You want me to
Happy
sing?
Sunday, everybody. How's it going? How's it going? Welcome to another episode. Got some special guests here, Jay. But before we get to what we're talking about, how you doing, Jay? You doing good?
I'm doing wonderful, wonderful.
All
I
right.
got. I'm
Well,
ready for
the
this.
people already
Ready.
know. I just wanted to make it seem like it's decent, but we're here for our guests, okay? So you can pump your brakes. Let-
I'm on
All
pause. I'm on pause.
right. But we do have two special guests here today. Whichever one of you would like to go first, as far as the introductions.
Ayana, you go first.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me again. My name is Ayana Fowler, originally from Newark, New Jersey. I studied criminal justice as my undergrad at Hampton University. I then continued those studies at Rutgers University. Excuse me. I studied those continued those studies at Rutgers University, and I focus on clinical mental health and rehabilitation counseling, which is really fun for me because I'm at the end stretch of that. In my internship, providing mental health counseling services, and yeah, so I really am passionate about mental health and what that looks like for people of color and people in general. And so I'm really glad to be here and give some insight about what I know so far. So again, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for
Thank you
being
for
here.
being here. Appreciate it.
And I am Dr. Lisa Lacan, and Ayana and I have something in common. I too graduated from Hampton University. I had no idea. So this is really interesting that he is a Hampton University graduate as myself. And then I went on to get my master's from Rutgers in rehab counseling, and then later to get my PhD in psychiatric rehabilitation. So currently, I have a podcast, Urban Tools for Change Network, on the YouTube channel, as well as my husband and I have a nonprofit organization, Blessed Ministries Incorporated. We are a workforce development agency. So we service disenfranchised populations, such as those on parole, probation, adults with disabilities, and youth with special needs. So yes, and actually, Anyana, I was a sociology criminal justice major at Hampton as well.
Wow,
I have to in the
what's the
house.
likelihood?
Yes, yes.
Awesome, awesome,
Fantastic,
ladies.
fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Oh well. For those of you that may not know, the episode today we're focusing on mental health. So that's why we have some of the experts in the field with us today. And I guess Jay, do you have you want to take a stab at what you think mental health
Well,
entails?
first thing, what is it? What is mental health? What does that entail?
I'm asking
Oh, is
you.
that for me?
Dr. Lisa?
Oh, okay, sure. So, okay, absolutely.
And then
I'm like, okay.
Ayana.
So when you look at mental health, there are pretty much like three things associated with mental health. You have someone's emotional well-being, their psychological well-being, as well as their social well-being. So say for instance, if someone's emotional well-being over a duration of time is out of sync, they may have a mental health condition. So you look at those three compartments. You look at the emotional realm, the psychological realm, and the social realm. So say for instance, if you have found out that a loved one is in a serious accident or something like that, all of those realms are going to be out of sync in a sense. There's not going to be peace within your social compartment, within your emotional compartment, as well as your psychological compartment. So what happens is when everything is pretty much in sync and you're at your peak performance, that's when you have stable mental health. However, when one of those things is a little upsetting, that's when you can have unstable mental health, meaning that you can have a mental health condition. I like to add one more part to that, and that is your spirit man also. When you don't identify and address your spirituality, that also can have you become unsync with your mental health. So that's what mental health is. It's a compartment of three things that work jointly together: the emotional realm, the psychological realm, and your social well-being.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa. Appreciate it. Ayana?
So yeah, just to piggyback, after that, it is all that. It's your emotional, psychological, social well-being. It's important to note that mental health is extremely impressionable, and it has the power to control your daily thoughts, the way you see life, the way you're perceived by others. I know now it's becoming more, ever since COVID, especially, it's definitely something that people want to talk about, mental health. We live in this fast paced life, and it's easy to kind of just not even acknowledge our mental health and the well being of our mental health. But essentially, it really is, like I said before, emotional, psychological, social well being that transitions and changes from childhood to adulthood and adolescence. It's forever changing because there's so many different factors that come together and really play a significant role in one's mental health status, the wellness of one's being. So yeah, that's what mental health is, and it's a really much needed, important conversation to have, to acknowledge the comfortable and uncomfortable parts about it, to really be the best person that you can be, and in return, contribute to society and contribute to those around you, and uplifting each other in a way that we protect our mental health status and well-being all together as a whole.
Okay, just on that, those three departments, everybody's going to suffer death in their life, lost loved one. So are we in a mental crisis then? Or so
Well, not
just basing
well, we're not in a mental crisis. It depends on duration. Okay. So
Okay.
duration is very important. How long are you in that state of unrest? So typically, if you are in a state of unrest for about 2 weeks, that's when it's like, okay, wait a minute. Okay. So say for instance, like I lost a very wonderful friend, my soror, and she died suddenly. So I was in a state of unrest for about a week or so. And I didn't stay in it. I didn't become overly like depressive or anything like that. I went through what I thought was just the natural thing of grieving for her. But if a person stays in that state of unrest for a very long time, that's when it can become a crisis. So it's also about not only those three compartments, it's also about duration. How long are you staying in that cycle of not being emotionally there? You don't have your psychological needs met as well as your social needs met. So that's when you can start to say, okay, I think this person is in a crisis because
Okay.
they've been in this condition for far too long.
Ayana?
And I agree, and I would also say, so how do we, when we talk about our support systems, right? What support systems do people have? Do they feel comfortable reaching out to? Somebody can be having a problem, a conflict, something that's going on that's affecting their mental health, whether it be affecting them emotionally, psychologically, or their social well-being. However, and if they had the proper resources, the proper support systems, it may be easier for that person to overcome and learn how to cope. And it just may be a little bump in the road. When you have somebody who doesn't have those resources for whatever reason that may be, doesn't have the proper support systems, doesn't feel like they're able to be heard anywhere, doesn't have a way to verbalize, this is what I'm feeling, this is how it's affecting me, I'm feeling this way because of this, and I don't understand why it's affecting me in this part of my life that seems totally unrelated. So I think it's really important when we talk about mental health, how it becomes a crisis when, like we were talking about duration, it becomes a crisis when somebody is struggling with this for so long and don't have the proper tools and resources to navigate through that. And it's a fast paced thing. Life is a fast paced thing for all of us, and so we look up and we don't realize, like, hey, I was struggling with this on Monday, and now 2 weeks later, in all these other fields of my life, I feel like everything's falling apart. Why? How? Who do I talk to? How do I say it? There's a lot of things that play a part in that.
So
Mhm.
longevity is a major part of it. How long
Absolutely.
you stay in it.
How long you stay in it. And she said something that's very key, coping skills. Coping skills are very important. And I know on this call, during the video show, we have two different generations.
That's right.
So you have their generation, which
In
they
the
have
right
different,
generation.
and then our generation.
Hold
And
on,
I think our
relax,
generation had different coping skills and coping
relax.
mechanisms.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's interesting because I found a student's ID from a high school student in the town that I live in. And on the back of the ID, it had nothing but suicide prevention, New Jersey suicide prevention, call the Hope Line. When we were growing up, we didn't have that. The only thing you had was the school address, just in case it got lost. So
That's
it's
right.
sort of like, I don't, it definitely is a difference in how we were raised to deal with these issues, because I know we had the latchkey kids. When
Yep.
we went home, we had to make our steakums. You remember that?
That's right. That's right. The steak, I was just heating up the strips of
Right,
supposedly steak, quote unquote steak.
right. We had the steakums. We did our own homework by ourselves. I don't
That's
even know if our parents really checked our homework. Um, we didn't get a prize just for showing up.
That's right. Everybody didn't win.
Right,
So hold on, hold up,
Say that.
hold up, hold up,
I'm
hold up,
not
hold up, hold
bashing.
up.
I'm not
Hold up.
bashing the new
That's not even
generation.
that's not
This
even
is
our
different
our
mindset.
generation. That's the generation behind us. So you need to pump your brakes
It's
right
a
there.
little residue. I think it's a little
Pump your
residue.
brakes right there. But slow your roll before you start trying to be like, oh yeah, it's these guys. No, I'm not gonna stand for that. I'm not gonna stand for it.
Oh,
Not while
Doc,
I'm here.
talk to us, Doc.
No,
I think it's
but
a
No,
little residue. I think with each generation, it kind of got watered down.
well,
I do.
well from hold on, I'm trying to collect my thoughts right because you kind of caught me off
We
guard
overwhelmed him.
with
We
the
overwhelmed him. We overwhelmed
with the
him.
participation award. You kind of caught me off guard, so I didn't have a proper answer for that. But I mean, from what I've been hearing though, it seems like you need to have a lot of resources though, as far as mental health, excuse me, not help. And a lot of times, especially, well, from my perspective, you don't have those outlets because you're always told, put some dirt on it, you'll be okay, or go do something else, this, that, and the third. So you don't really have those outlets per se as far as somebody to talk to. And do you think that's a major part as to why it's overlooked in communities, because it's always looked at the bigger picture as far as like be a man or be you got to be the big person or big brother or whatever. If you have like a big family, big brother, you got to set an example for the people behind you. Or in sports, they're just like rub some dirt on it, you'll be okay. Doesn't worry about your health. They're just trying to make sure you perform on the field essentially.
Mm.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you look at especially our community, the Black community, we never trusted doctors per se. So we didn't trust the traditional MDs. So we're not going to trust the therapists in a sense. And growing up, I really didn't know anyone that saw a therapist.
Right.
Like,
No,
you
me
know,
either.
it just, that wasn't a conversation over the dinner table. So how's therapy coming along, Lisa? Like,
Exactly.
it just
Exactly.
wasn't something that we talked about, that we actually knew of. I knew about mental health issues and mental illness because growing up in Washington, D.C., there was a huge psychiatric hospital called St. Elizabeth's. And I kid you not, I think some of the patients used to elope and I would see them on the street. But we just chalked it up and said, oh, they're a dime short, and then just kind of ignored it. So I think because we did not rely on, doctors and things of that nature, we had the church, but counseling in the church, sometimes they looked at it as maybe you're possessed by the devil.
That's right. That's
Right.
right.
Throw some holy
Very
water
true.
on you, get the and then everything will be
Exorcism.
restored.
Uh, well, no, I get it. But
I think to piggyback off of that, the fear and mistrust that people of color have for arguably most systems here in the U.S. and the history of why we have that fear and mistrust, that plays a major part in the stigma that surrounds mental health altogether. It plays a part in why we don't have the resources, or the fact that a lot of people are simply don't have the means to obtain certain resources. They're inaccessible. The overall discrimination, I think, is a very complex thing when you look at it, and why mental health is overlooked in communities of color. And like you said before, it's kind of like the superwoman idea of like, you got this. Our ancestors, they went through everything. So who are you to complain about feeling anxiety or being depressed or feeling suicidal? Who are you, like, how can you complain about that when you look back at your ancestors and and then so there's like an unspoken feeling of guilt to even bring up certain things, even bring up certain feelings, certain emotions. You have head figures of the household that are stressed for many reasons. You have parents who are unable to give the proper attention that they even need to their children and their mental health needs because they're straight up stressed. They have bills, they're not getting paid the same. They have to work doubles. So there's so many things that really play a part into both why people aren't using resources and why the resources aren't available in the same ways in communities of color. Why do you have to travel 30 minutes maybe to go to a proper counseling center when you can go to other communities and it's something that's advertised daily in school?
Right.
So like, how do you address that? How do you adequately address the needs of children, adolescents who eventually grow up into adults, and they've been fighting these concerns and these issues for so long and don't even know where to begin, how to talk about it, where to go?
okay, Ayana, awesome points, Dr. Lisa. But I got to stress this from an age perspective as well. Now, we didn't have those resources. It wasn't even really talked about.
Mhm.
But I guess we seem to make it through it. Why is it so different now compared to, now compared to when, then?
I really think social media, to be honest.
Absolutely.
And
I believe
social
that.
media has, you know, this is it, it this is interesting because anything that man touches can be perverted. I think maybe the intention could have been good, but because man is involved in it, it's kind of been perverted. So it's sort of like when we were in school, if we were being bullied, it was only about maybe 20 people that knew that we were being bullied. Now you have thousands of people that know that you're being bullied. So 1,000 eyes, well, maybe 2,000 if you have two eyes, 2,000 eyes are on you as the victim of a bully versus when we grew up, it was maybe just your little class or your little school, and that's it. I think social media has made it more difficult to hide. Everything is transparent, whether you like it or not. There are a lot of things that are fake on social media that people are trying to live up to, and they never will because it's just an illusion. And I think social media, again, has done some wonderful things. People have connected, family members have connected who they never knew one another. But then on the side, you have cyber bullies.
Right.
So it's like,
And
That's Tack. He's a social. He tax me like
yes.
He's a
tax you like,
bully.
what are
He's
you
a
talking
bully.
about? I'm not the
He's a
one
bully.
talking about.
He's
Wait,
a
whoa, whoa,
bully.
whoa, 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 whoa. The people will go back and see all the episodes how you always pick at me. You started, and I just finish it. That's all it is.
But this topic is, I mean, we're not trying to make light of the topic. This is serious, and
Mhm.
it's sad that in the Black community is overlooked or just like you both say, the resources. But isn't technology available so that they do have resources now that they can pull from the help available compared to when we were growing up? We didn't
Oh,
have that.
yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's pros and cons to it. It's easier for our generation to pick up our cell phones and dial a number and talk to a free crisis line immediately. It's also really easy for us to wake up, pick up our phone, and see people that are our age and living these lifestyles, these lavish lifestyles, and they have this, and they look like this, and they're doing this. And why does it seem so easy for them? That really has a powerful impact on the mind. Whether I think our generation acknowledges it or not, there is a lot of power in being able to pick up a device, be able to choose and what you post, but not be able to choose really what you see and what you take in. Document your whole life from morning to night, including what you ate, what you wore, where you went. That is really crazy.
Right, it is. It's like
You go on TikTok nowadays, and you really have people who wake up, set their phone up, get back in the bed, record so people can see them wake up and get ready with them for the day. How does that affect one who maybe may not have those things or maybe struggling in certain areas or just simply taking in the smallest, most personable parts of the lives of people that they never met and arguably never will? But still, it really controls, I think, the way people see themselves. And it makes people be hard on themselves. Like, well, what am I not doing to have A, B, and C? I think it's easier for us. It's more addictive to go on a social media app and look at what's going on in so and so's life rather than picking up the phone and looking up a resource or picking up the phone and researching anything or just simply reading a book. It's addictive to look at someone's life and everything that they show you on a daily basis.
it is. And growing up, we only had what, 3 channels.
3 channels, black and white.
Right. It was like, and
Oh,
TV was not 24/7. It went off the
that's right.
air. And
You see
then when it was going off air, they played that music.
That's right.
Right, yeah, right.
Yes. Little tear come down. I'm serious. Y'all might not understand that, but Dr. Lisa knows. She knows what I'm
Yes,
talking about.
absolutely.
But the thing is, somebody like me, just a layman, I'm not a professional in that field. Just don't watch it. Turn it off. Why not just turn it off?
I mean,
Don't watch these other people how they live. But Tack, I mean,
you're gonna see it
that's how
regardless.
I
Even if you say turn it off, you're gonna see it at some point. It's gonna be fed to you because that big businesses are trying to push those people so they can sell X product or whatever the case may be. So you're gonna see somebody wearing something like, oh, who's that? Let me go see what they're about, and it leads you back to their social media so you can see what products they're trying to push or whatever the case may be. Unfortunately. So
it's not as easy as turning it off.
it's not as
And
easy.
say, I'm gonna walk away.
No,
from it.
because Ayana said something key is can become an addiction.
It's addiction.
Mm-hmm.
It can become an addiction.
So social media, if not policed, can become an addiction.
Oh, yeah,
That-
absolutely.
Absolutely.
That creates what department does that fall in? Does it fall in all three?
Yes.
Absolutely. And I'll paint this picture. I'll paint a very good picture. So when you have an addiction, it's sort of like you have obsessions.
Mhm.
And obsessions are recurrent and persistent thoughts, urges, and images. So you have the obsessions. And then you have the compulsions. Those compulsions are the behaviors that you try to fulfill from that obsession. So say, for instance, a person who is on drugs, uses drugs for the first time, and I tell my audience this, if you've ever experienced an orgasm, when a person experiences an orgasm, what happens is there's a release of dopamine in our brain, these neurotransmitters, that is a sign that at that point in time, we have pleasure, we're satisfied, and it motivates us. So once that happens, that's called like the pleasure region. Once that happens and we tap into it, we want more of that effect. I call it I sort of call it like the dopamine effect, meaning we're always on the hunt to get that sensation. So with social media, it becomes an addiction because once you hit that like for someone, they're looking at it. Oh my gosh. Oh, I got a like. Oh, I got another one. Boop, little dopamine. Boop, it's coming. Doop, doop. It's like having little mini orgasms. Doop, doop. Oh, I like this. I like this. And then you want more and more and more and more. And then the third part about an addiction is the disruption. Does it disrupt your finances? Does it disrupt your family? Does it disrupt your education, your employment? Does it disrupt your spirituality? So say, for instance, you have people that may drink alcohol, but you know what? It's fine. Their family's intact. Their finances are intact. You know, they may not have an addiction to it, but when it comes to the point where you have these thoughts, urges, and images of something, and then the behavior follows that, and you want to pursue it, that's when it can become an addiction, especially if it's disruptive to those main things in your life, like your family and stuff like that. So a person can be addicted to gambling. A person can be addicted to having sex. A person can be addicted to social media, especially if it has those three things in place: the obsessions, the compulsions, and the disruptions. So yeah.
Okay. Ayana?
Yeah. So I think so let's say, so you use the analogy of an orgasm.
Mhm.
So let's say we're using the analogy of somebody who's addicted to an illegal substance that you have to get off the street, right? So a person, once they develop that addiction, they have to go through a lot to get what they need to fulfill that dopamine release and feel that pleasure, right?
Mhm.
They have to go through so much. when one is addicted to social media, and you don't really have to go through much except to make sure you're connected to Wi-Fi.
Right.
That's all you need, you know? So it's like, that is so interesting to me to see the relationship between what a person is required to do to fulfill their addiction. If for some reason that addiction is starting to affect them in different realms of their life, it becomes kind of obvious, right? You're like, okay, that person is addicted to a substance. This person has a gambling addiction. It's a little bit more easier to identify, I think.
Right.
But when somebody has a device in their hand that they use for safety measures to communicate, but then they're also using this device, or they have 10 different apps that they can log into at all moments of the day. There's nothing preventing the addiction from flourishing. There's no protective measures. The only protective measure that one has is willpower and saying, you know what? I'm not going to use Instagram today. I'm not going to use Twitter today. But then your notification goes off.
Right.
You hear somebody outside, you hear somebody in the store saying something, and you're like, oh, wait, let me go see what they're talking about. Like, let me go on the shade room, and so I could be up to date. You start feeling like you don't even know what's going on in the world because you feel like you're not connected to social media. And that's an interesting concept for me. I think it's pretty crazy.
And it's just wild because a lot of times social media will have the news before the news channels even do. So
Absolutely.
you'll hear about something going on, and then 3 hours later you hear it on the news. It's like, yeah, I already knew about it, and then you move on to something else. So
Yeah.
it's just really unfortunate.
Yeah, I think it's that. And I also think so the access that we have as far as being able to record something and the second it's happening, right? So the news doesn't even have it yet, but you see it on TikTok Live and you see it very raw. You see the raw images of what's going on. How does that affect or play a part in the development of secondary trauma? Because
Absolutely.
you're not there, but you're seeing these traumatic experiences over and over and over and over again, and you're able to replay and watch and save and send it to somebody. What does that do to the brain to be able to have that access? What does that do to the fact that you have these images? You weren't there, and it might have happened on the other side of the world, but you have that raw image in your brain. How does that play a role in trauma?
Yeah. Good.
Crazy.
Excellent point. Yeah. And, I noticed something where when you see something positive, like a positive podcast and talking about good things, they don't pass that. But let it be something negative or, just raunchy or just something like that. And people just pass it to everybody. They don't want to send it to everybody. They couldn't send it to enough people. And so I'm kind of talking to you, young Dr. Lisa and Ayana, soon to be doctor, that this is addiction. This is serious. This is not, in the fact of it. I never heard it called that. People just say, I'm just on social media. At one time you could have a conversation with somebody. Now everybody got their phone to their face. They don't even see what's going on around them.
It is awful. It's making people socially awkward.
Mhm.
The workforce is totally changing. I just a little story. I went to a restaurant and there were 3 hostesses there. I walk in and none of them acknowledged me at all. They didn't say hi, how are you doing? They were talking amongst themselves, had their phone up. I'm like, what? This has gotten out of hand. It really has.
They were expecting you to already have a reservation and know where to go. Reservation.
Yeah, I guess so. Hey, right? But you know what I think is going to happen as a result of social media and everything that Ayana was talking about is I really think artificial intelligence is going to take over, especially in some industries in the workforce. You don't have to concern yourself with people not looking up from their phone at that point, so it's interesting.
But okay, the mental aspect of being with COVID, separation, people not communicating, talk, but they still have social media. So, is that the rise of mental type um events that's happening is because of that social media being the only outlet and no personal interaction?
Well, yes
That
and
plays a
no.
part. Okay.
Yeah, yes and no. With the personal interaction, so a lot of people were divorced during COVID
Yes.
because there
Actually,
was
just talked about this earlier. That's funny. We talked about
because
this.
there was a lot of social interaction. Like, oh my God, who am I married to? Are you serious? Like, so that happened as a result.
That's funny. That's funny.
That happened as a result of COVID. But I think sometimes the good thing about social media was you had the opportunity to escape in a sense. So you had the opportunity to listen to, I know there was a DJ playing sometimes, you had the opportunity to listen to that. You had the opportunity to see how other people were dealing with it. You had the opportunity, but that could have been opening Pandora's box to more addiction based on what was happening during the pandemic.
Right.
Okay.
Because the person will try to look for that DJ again, they're not playing, but then they find another
Right.
post by somebody else, at least down the rabbit hole. You can't just look at one post on social media and be satisfied. You'll look at it, and I'm telling you this from experience. You'll look at a post, and next thing you know, 30 minutes went by, and you're just like, why am I still here scrolling, looking at other stuff? So
Well, I've been down the TikTok tunnel. I call it my TikTok tunnel. I start out at 1 o'clock, and then I know it's like 2:30. I spent an hour and a half doing nothing. Now, however, I just had a medical procedure, and at that point, I didn't want to read. I couldn't read and think, so it came in handy. Like, oh, this is so it made me laugh, it made me escape, but I know how to put it down. And then I haven't picked it up in like 4 weeks. So I kind of know, like, okay, I needed it for that moment. And I've since, moved on, and then I'll pick it back up. And then when something else happens in my life, I put it down. And because I do have a YouTube channel, I still kind of see, okay, what's out there, who's saying this, who's doing that. But I know for me personally, I could have an addictive personality. So I know my personality, and I put up safety rails for me. Like if I'm on something too long, I have to wait. Look, I put it down. And one of the things that if someone has an addiction and they're going through like AA or NA, one of the first things they say is, "Hi, my name is Lisa. I'm an addict." And the reason why they say that is because your brain has already been hijacked with those chemicals. And it's very hard, if at all possible, to erase the damage. And that's why people call it a brain disease. Because what has happened is that chemical has hijacked your body and your brain, and you're like a zombie wanting to get that fix. So it's you have to change your habits. And one of the things that they talk about in AA is to remove yourself from people, places, or things, because it's all those three things that could be triggers for you. So say for instance, with social media, if you have a friend that's always selfies and you're with that
yeah,
friend.
Jay. Yeah, Jay.
Or you could have a friend that you can go to a restaurant with somebody and the food come out and you can't
yeah.
eat until that person takes a
Man.
picture or a video of their food.
No,
It's like,
that
wow.
doesn't happen around me. I'm like, put the camera up.
Yeah.
It's food.
And then you have
It's-
some that will argue that's how they make their money, because people do
Right.
take videos and pictures of their money,
Yep.
and that is literally their source, their primary source of income is taking pictures of their meals. And there are going to be 1.5 million people that sit there and watch what you ate, where you ordered from, and what your review was based on your own taste buds.
Yep.
But we're gonna sit here and we're gonna watch how you felt about this restaurant, this day, this place. We're gonna watch it, and it's so crazy. It's like,
So,
wow.
so is this something? I'm looking at it as: is this something that's there, that's always been there? It's just being exposed, or is it because of what we have available to us? Because you just said somebody gonna watch somebody meal, millions of people gonna watch what this person eat. So,
Well, I mean,
uh,
it started with our generation, and we'll take full blame for full
Yes.
blame for that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
I'm not even gonna sit here and argue that it started with our
Thank you. Yeah.
generation.
it's something there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
Our,
think oh, go ahead. No, go.
I was just saying our generation came out with all that stuff, so you can blame us for all your troubles that you're having now as far as the social media and everything like that. So, but
I also think social media is it has the power to be a good escape, and it has the power to be a hurtful escape. Somebody has the ability to construct their life on how they want to be viewed and create a whole nother world. That you can be a totally different person. You can be flawless on social media. You can edit your pictures and look exactly how you want to look. You can create your timeline or your post, and there could be five bad things that happen to you today, but nobody's gonna know that if they go on your page and look, because you have that power. For the first time, people have that power to construct a lifestyle, and I think that in itself is really addictive, to be seen in the light that you choose to be seen in. I think that's also a really powerful part that I'm not really sure if we even notice that we have that control. I think we just do it because it's kind of like a norm, especially for our generation. But essentially that's what we're doing. We're creating profiles, and we are saying, this is how I want to be viewed. This is what I want people to see. And this is how I want to be perceived by others. And I have that power to do so. And then this comes into the mental health thing, because say somebody has worked really hard to get 10,000 followers, right? They worked really hard day and night for this. And then their page gets hacked.
Yeah.
And they have to start over from zero. Now you have a person that is experiencing, from their point of view, it be very well may be described as a crisis. Because, oh my God, somebody just took my 10,000 followers that I created over the last 3 years. What do I do? It's like, now you lost control. And reality is not, your reality is a little bit warped in a sense, because your actual daily life without social media, it's like, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about, where did my 50 posts on Instagram go that I personally put up there? That's what I'm worried about. So it's like, how does that affect someone? And I think that's a big thing. I've seen a couple friends have many breakdowns over either the app is messing up and you can't refresh your news feed,
Yep.
or your page got hacked and you can't get in. It's like, oh, hold up. Like, I might need to do a breathing exercise because I'm not doing too well right now. But it's like, it's just social media. But I think it's the fact that we think it's just social media, but it really means so much more to people than what they're willing to admit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
this is scary.
Now, Dr. Lisa, I do have a question for you. As someone who's also in the creator space, do you, in your opinion, do you feel like it is a faster track to addiction for creators, since we have to be on social media to push our content, like talk on Twitter, put it on Instagram, do short videos for TikTok? Do you think that's a faster gateway for those addictions, or should they try to navigate it and manage how much time they are on those? Because at least for me, we're always told, you got to be on there pushing your content, push it, post. So you're usually on there, 24/7 for the most part. pushing your content. So I'm just curious from your perspective as somebody that's also, doing the same thing. Do you see a workaround for it, or is there some avenues people could possibly go as far as trying to mitigate that in my eyes, a fast track to addiction?
Well, yeah, because I know for me, so I started my podcast a year ago, and I was pretty much on the same thing. Okay, I need to put out content, have to be consistent, have to do whatever, blah, 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 blah. So this past August, I took 3 weeks off. I did not post anything live. I had stuff that I posted, and my producer, he aired it, but I needed to take a break. And I think if you don't take a break, and everyone knows their own personality and things of that nature. So say for instance, if you are working 24 hours a day and you're not spending time with your family, you're not taking care of your health, you're not going to the doctor, you're not getting those exams, you can be a workaholic. And what that means is you are essentially overlooking certain things in your life as a result of your job, which is social media. Because that social media component in and of itself can be addictive. So, how do you put, I guess, a barrier around that? Is okay, so on Saturday, I'm going to work from 9 a.m. 4 p.m. and then I'm done. Now, if you have a problem with that internally and you feel like, oh my God, then you may have to check yourself, and then you have to ask yourself, how much time have I spent on my physical body? When was the last time I went to the doctor? Do I have to go to the doctor? When was the last time I went to the dentist? Am I always putting the social media stuff ahead of my health? Because oftentimes people do that. And I tell people, what you focus on will grow. If you focus on social media all the time, that's what will grow. But then you're going to be deficit in other areas of your life. So I think it is important to take those breaks from social media. If you have a team, give it to someone else, or something like that. But it's hard because will you lose subscribers? Because sometimes I lose subscribers, and then I say to myself, as a way to center myself, I say, okay, well, you know what? They weren't meant for me anyway, and there was more to come.
Mm.
So I have to do some self-talk. I have to take a break. I have to, and I cannot be on 24/7. I'm married. I have 4 children. I have a business. Something's going to suffer. And I refuse for it to be my marriage, my family,
Mm.
So, yeah. So how are you, how do you handle, are you on literally like 24/7? Like when you wake up, is that the first thing that you do? Like reach for,
No, not at
or
all.
do, oh, okay.
Not at all. I have friends in the creator space that when we probably all got in around the same time, and so it's just one of those things that you always hear when you're in the creator space. It's like, hey, if you want to grow, you got to be consistent. You got to do this. You got to do X, Y, and Z. Listening to your peers, and so when you're hearing that social media, has that effect on your mental health, it just made me think, it's like, well, I mean, you're basically fast tracking yourself to those issues because you're trying to push your content to help yourself grow. And so it was just something I'd like to ask as from someone who's in the space and who's basically certified to to talk about these things. So it's just refreshing to really hear that from somebody who's doing the same thing, but also knows how to take breaks, because the grind is 24/7. Basically, is when you're in that space, it's 24/7. You're either at the head of the pack or you're behind, and a lot of people don't ever want to be behind, because then you're not growing. Essentially, there's people out there doing it first or doing it better than so it's just really interesting, just looking at it from a different perspective, or hearing it from a different perspective, excuse me.
And it's so interesting because prior to me getting in, doing the podcast and things of that nature, I didn't really think about it being it's hard work.
Yeah.
It's hard work because for me, I have to research sometimes the material that I'm, disseminating. I have to figure out, okay, what am I going to wear? What am I going to say? Is the house going to be quiet? Do I have to do this? I have to do all these little things. I have to get the right camera. I have to get the right lighting. It's like, oh my gosh, this is, this is oh my goodness. Now, growing up, we didn't have that.
Right.
We didn't experience that. I'm trying to think, what did we have? Really nothing. We had Walkman, we had 8-track tapes, we had
Yeah. And the phone was as long as that cord.
right, yeah, right. We had the rotary dial phone. Like,
That's right. That's right. That's right.
we didn't have we had encyclopedias.
That's we had books,
We
right?
had
Real
books.
books.
We had the
You're
white
making it.
pages, the yellow pages, encyclopedias.
That's right.
You're making it sound like none of this existed. Like we still had the tail end of what you guys were getting rid of.
Oh
Like
my
we still had
God.
the dial-up phones and everything like that. It just so happened that YouTube started, the like 2007, no, earlier, a little bit earlier than that, probably like early 2000s. It just so happened that is when, the internet started to boom and all this other stuff came out. So don't try to act like you guys had, I mean, yes, you might have had little schools out in the middle of nowhere with the little tumbleweeds going across the ground and everything like that. You had to walk. Oh, let me wait. The best quote. I had to walk 8 miles to school both ways with my shoes on in the snow.
There and back.
Uphill both ways. Uphill both ways. But no, but what I wanted to say, especially since you brought the topic of age, where we were built, well, the parents were different. So, and I think it goes back to parenting too, as well. Correct me, doctors and future doctor, about this. It was a tough. You're gonna be tough. You're gonna, suck it up. Keep it moving. But mental illness wasn't, or mental health wasn't addressed either. Absolutely, because I did see mental. If I think back, I can see that and how it was handled. It wasn't really handled. It was just accepted. It was just dealt with. And now I see that it's more that people can't handle it. If people and I just don't think they're built strong enough emotionally to take on the burdens that we can. And I'm not trying to make light of it. It's just how we were brought up compared to how we are raising our kids,
Mm-hmm.
and instilling that same philosophy into them. Now it's like everything is emotional, how you feel, and it's just different, and it allows this mental capacity, the weakness in it, the mental strength to be exploited through
Mm-hmm.
social media or any other avenue that's out there. Um, your
Yeah,
take on that?
I think I think you hit on something because it's called resilience. I think because we did take those walks to school, we were talking, and we may not have been talking about the issue per se, but we were talking about things that made a difference in our lives, that made us feel good. So we weren't relying on a technology. We were relying on human contact. We were relying on those relationships, one-on-one, those personable relationships that really make a difference. There's a study that shows if you remove an animal, like a cub or a kitten, from its mother or from the thing that they are, remove it versus someone or an animal that's with that particular animal, the person that was with the animal will live longer. The person that was with the animal will have a more productive life versus that animal that was removed from their, in a sense, natural habitat. And I think for us, because we had that, we went outside playing. We played until the street lights, we had recess. We did all these things that we had gym. I don't even know if they have gym like we had before. We used to dress up with gym clothes. Like we had uniforms.
That's right.
We had uniforms and we spent time like that connecting. And you saw people for who they were, not for what they wanted to come across as, like what Ayana said. So we saw when someone fell on the ground and they started crying, we ran and like, you need help. It wasn't like they fell social media, oh, I'm doing fine today. And meanwhile, they just had this major accident. It's like, it's kind of phony when you think about it. It's the filter generation. It's just,
I think you bring up a great point about social interactions altogether, social relationships altogether. And it's interesting, we see that now, how if somebody falls in the middle of the street, or if somebody going through a crisis, our generation, a lot of people in our generation, I'm not going to say all, but a lot, their first instinct is to pick up their phone and record. Yeah. It's like we lost that human connection, I think. And I think that's really, 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 really harmful to society and in humans as a whole. It's just our response. It's how we receive and how we respond. And it is, a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're right. We were on MySpace. We weren't, outside as often. We were outside, but not as often, not so much. It was definitely more of you could sit in the computer room for 2 hours and have a conversation with one person over the phone rather than being outside. And we having these simple conversations that really aren't simple, because you're getting that engagement that's necessary for the continuation of growth. You're getting that when you have those interactions. We're kind of robbed of that opportunity when we have the ability to use these platforms. And you could choose to talk to one person, you could choose to talk to 10 people, you could choose to talk to people that are international, people that have that face different challenges, that are not similar, that don't have the same experiences. So I think it waters down that natural social engagement between children back in the day and people just in general back in the day, just having simple conversations on the bus rather than us getting on public transportation or in the store and we're just on our phones. We're not getting that. We're not getting that pleasure. That dopamine is not being released while having conversations with people and being like, oh, I had a really good talk with that lady today at the store. Like, we don't have that anymore because we were on the phone. We were recording our shopping spree instead of having a talk with somebody in the aisle about the weather. Like
And you said something key, and I envision this. You said, like, instead of when you see someone injured, you pick up the phone. Our generation, call 911. This generation is like, 911, well, I got to take pictures of this. I got to post this. It's like, well, 911 was the priority back then.
That's right.
Now, taking a picture and posting it on your platform is the priority, and 911 is second to that.
Because guess what? Who gets the recognition if you call 911? You're not going to be recognized 9 times out of 10 for calling. Yeah. If you're the first one to get a good shot of whatever occurred in that moment, then you're the one that everybody's going to refer to. Everybody's going to go to your page because they're going to be looking at, what you posted about that. But you're not getting that recognition when you do what we know as the right thing is to call trained professionals who may be able to assist this person rather than posting it for the family group chat to see.
Right. And becoming viral. I'm viral now.
Mm-hmm.
Also trying not to get any cases brought against you for trying to help the person, because That's a big thing too. Oh, they got me out the fire, but I'm gonna sue him because he, he carried me
I
out.
hit my
right.
head on the way out.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
Yep.
So this, surmise all this, input. What can people do? What help? Because this is addiction is pretty much every household. And we're dealing with it in ourselves as well to maintain and keep that sanity of not trying to say somebody who does it is insane, but to keep ourselves in check and to minimize the effects of how this thing can take over. So what do you suggest for people out there? What help, things they can do to help them get through this and manage this addiction? Yeah, probably can't get, over the addiction, but manage it at least.
Well, Yana, you can take this and then I'll follow you.
Okay. I think first, acknowledging that you may have an addiction to social media and not feeling like it's taboo, because it's not. But that only begins with having conversations such as the one that we're having today. It begins with talking about it and actually taking time to yourself to just analyze your life, analyze what's going on, what parts of your life aren't being fed. Am I feeding myself emotionally? Is my psychological state the best that it can be as far as I can control? How am I contributing to my social well-being? Is social media having a direct impact or influence on the reason why these areas of my life may not be fulfilled? If so, maybe now's the time to acknowledge it, one. Two, talk to somebody if you feel like it's a little bit out of your control, which is absolutely okay. We're not superwoman and Superman. So it's okay to reach out to somebody. It's okay to go on Google the same way you can go on Twitter and see what's happening in the news. You can go on Google and, hey, what resources are around? What free resource? Who can I talk to? Can I call the National Crisis Hotline? Are there friends? Analyze your social group. Analyze your friends. And do I have a real friend? Not a friend that I could just go out with and record for the night. Do I have a real friend that I could say, hey, I might be a little bit addicted to social media, or I'm having trouble putting my phone down. I'm telling myself I will put my phone down between 9 and 4. But when 4 o'clock comes, I'm telling myself, okay, just till 5. And then 5 comes and now I'm at 8. Is that something that I'm experiencing? Is that something that you're experiencing? Do you maybe want to get help together? Do you maybe want to talk about it together? I also think it's extremely important, something that we don't do enough. Practice mindfulness. Feed your soul, feed yourself, whether that be writing poetry, doing yoga, meditating, sitting on the balcony and looking at the sun, looking at the sky, taking a moment to think with no phone around you, just yourself. Be present, be with self, practice being present, because when you put that phone down, what's real is you. What's real is your family. What's real are the struggles that you're facing that exist outside of what you post. Sometimes we don't have control over the things that occur in our lives, the things that happen. So, what is it that I'm really dealing with? How do I talk about this? Am I comfortable talking about this? If not, why am I not comfortable talking about this? Who, ideally, would I be comfortable talking to? What resources, what outlets can I use? And if you know what, if social media is your addiction, all right, so let's use social media to feed ourselves. Let's go on TikTok and look up some videos on how to cope with stress. Let's look up some videos on what are some signs of addiction? What are the experiences of other people who have been willing to express that and put that out there to help people? So you have control. It's your phone. So you take control of it and you say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to use my phone and use social media to figure out a plan, figure out a way that I can truly address what it is that needs to be addressed if I'm noticing that social media is affecting my mental health, and being okay with with talking about it and admitting it, because if you're struggling with social media and feeling addicted, there's about 50 other people in a very close radius that are feeling the same way. So we have to begin with having that conversation and being okay with saying, I'm addicted to something that growing up, I wasn't told to stay away from. I was told to say no to drugs. I was told to say no to alcohol. I was not told to say no to social media. But now it's here, and I'm struggling with the influence and the impact that it has on my life. And just being willing to have that conversation and choosing yourself, loving yourself, and taking the necessary steps to move forward and addressing those major concerns if it is impacting you in that way.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And that's why she's a
Beautiful.
Hampton graduate.
That's right.
Yes. So proud. Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, I can't add anything to that because that is true.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That is it.
That was
You
awesome.
know, that honest self-talk with yourself. Know thyself and be honest with thyself. And seek the help that you need because it's out there. It definitely is out there. So yep, that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you both. Great information, and hopefully, if you don't mind, maybe in the future, are you willing to come back?
Oh yeah,
Maybe
absolutely.
we'll love to have you back.
Yes.
Definitely, and good luck to you, Ayana, wherever that level is, and Dr. Lisa. Please, guys, I don't know if y'all talk often, but keep in contact because I want to know what's going on. And
Oh
if there's
yeah.
anything
Thank
that we need to know, please feel free to let us know.
All
Tag,
right.
I'm gonna let this young fella here say something.
Okay. Well, before we had see, that's what I'm talking about. It's the slot. It's the sneak dissing right there.
Make him tough.
Lucky.
I'm trying to make him tough.
See, that's what happens. But no, before we get out here, once again, I wanted to thank you both for joining us. We really appreciate it. And if there's anything you would like to say to the audience that may be listening or watching, as far as like where they may reach you or whatever you may have on, as far as like if you have anything coming up, that anything like events or anything like that, or any other YouTube or whatever the case may be, the floor is yours at this time. Whichever one of you would like to go first.
All right. So for me, what I'm doing now with on Urban Tools for Change Network on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Facebook, as we talk about social media, I'm on all these platforms. I'm on all these platforms. So now I'm doing a special about delusions. I just did a series about 9 personality disorders. So now I'm talking about what are delusions. And I had a sneak peek of the difference between a delusion and hallucinations. So I'm going to start talking about delusions, and then I come on live every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this Tuesday, I'm going to be talking about grandiose delusions. So that's what I have in store for Urban Tools for Change. And when you enter on the YouTube, you actually, it's called the Urban Suite. And my followers, see, they're my urbanites. So yes. So
And we'll have the link for that in the description below as well, so you can just click on it and go directly there.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And for me, once again, I would really like to thank you guys for having me on this platform. As I am a student, finishing my master's program, which I'm super excited about. I look forward to making an impact in the field of mental health. That's something that I'm passionate about it. I didn't mention this before, so I went to Hampton University for criminal justice. I really wanted to be a lawyer. I really want us to start beginning to acknowledge the intersectionality of mental health and the incarceration of all individuals, specifically Black men and women, people of color. That's what led me to continue my studies here at Rutgers University for clinical mental health, because it's definitely something that needs to be acknowledged and addressed. Do not ever feel scared to reach out. There are thousands of free resources and different resources out there. There are people like myself who dedicate 98% of their time to being the best that I can be and learning as much as I can so that I can be a helping hand. For anybody that's in the Essex County area, students in middle school that are preparing to go to high school, I urge you to please look into the high school that I graduated from. It's called Bard High School Early College. It's a free school. You do receive your associate's degree in liberal arts when you graduate, along with your high school diploma. So if that's something that can help somebody out, please, please, please look into it. And also, lastly, Charlemagne is having a free mental health expo that's upcoming Saturday in Times Square. It's open to all ages, all people. There's a lot of good, there's a lot of good panelists that will be there and a lot of discussions that I think all of us can benefit from in some way or in another. So just in case you guys want to go to a free event in Times Square on Saturday, it's definitely something you guys should look into. But again, thank you for having me.
Well, Alana and Dr. Lisa, I mean, we're gonna hold strong because we're older. But Alana, it's hope for the future with people like
Yes,
you.
absolutely.
I can see that.
Thank you.
And thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you. And thank you
Absolutely.
both. Appreciate it.
All right, and thank you. And I tell people our job as the older generation is to impart wisdom and capital to invest in the younger generation, for sure.
Yes.
So thank you
Yeah.
again.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, Jay, you heard wisdom.
Please stand by. That's a full-time job. Please.
All right, but that'll do it from us, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed today's
Take
episode.
care.
And
Thanks.
we will be back next week. And like I said, everything will be in the description as far as what was discussed at the end. And if there's anything else, I'll be sure to plug it as well. But you all have a great rest of your Sunday, and we will see you next weekend. We are out of here. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.